Hello everyone, a very warm welcome to this edition of The Inside. I am Babla Jonathan. Today we are analyzing another threat to social cohesion, peace and stability of the nation, Cameroon. Besides the security tensions in the northwest and southwest regions of the country, chieftaincy conflicts constitute another major threat to the peace of the nation. And in the crisis-stricken northwest and southwest regions of the country, this problem can be qualified as a conflict or another conflict in an existing conflict. And the case in point in this edition of The Inside is the CHU community in the Menchum Division, northwest region of the Republic of Cameroon, since its traditional leader, His Royal Majesty Kum Achu Kouzu Albert Chi, was killed by gunmen in March 2022. The village has been without a traditional leader, and now there are alleged maneuvers, illegal, unorthodox maneuvers, to impose a traditional leader in that community in violation of the customs and traditions of the people. And we will tell you in this edition of the program about the CHU king-making process and more. Also in this edition of The Inside, we are focusing on a comprehensive analysis of the key players and institutional frameworks involved in Cameroon's presidential succession process. We are looking at insight into the bodies like the Senate, or better still, the Parliament, the Constitutional Council, the Prime Ministry, and Elections Cameroon, how these institutions work together to ensure a smooth transition of power while ensuring balance between constitutional law, institutional responsibility, and of course political stability. And of course that's going to be in part 2 of the program, when we will be looking at the how Cameroon can navigate future leadership transitions while upholding its constitutional and democratic order. Meet our guests in some few seconds. Our guest today is Dr. CHU CHY, barrister, arbitrator of England, Wales, France, and Cameroon, joining us from Cambridge in the United Kingdom. He is a former advisor to the UK Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Department in Sierra Leone, South Sudan, Uganda, Kenya, and Somalia in constitutional matters, justice, morals, anti-corruption, and security. Doctor, you're welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
Right. Let's begin with issues concerning the crisis-stricken, predominantly English-speaking northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon. For 8 years now, the security situation in those two regions has been volatile and remains unstable as we speak. And in the most recent incidents, 2 vehicles were set ablaze at Church Street in the northwest regional capital, Bamenda. What's your take about this prevailing situation in the northwest and southwest regions of the country?
First, my condolences to those that have lost their lives recently, and all the thousands that have lost their lives, and their families as well, to convey that. It is really tragic that this continues to unfold, a crisis that has spanned nearly a decade now, and is leaving a trail really of a pain and a heartbreak. That is allowed to continue for this long, I think is not acceptable. However, we do have a government, we do have responsibility, both locally and nationally, to ensure that this stops, because it's really a solemn reminder, really, of the cost of division, the power of unity. That if you don't tap into that power, then things just deteriorate to where they are now. This started, you would recognize, as a peaceful protest by lawyers mostly and teachers. Then it spiraled into devastating conflict tearing families apart, displacing communities, and shattering the lives of countless men, women, and children. But one thing that we easily forget on this is that behind the statistics, there are human stories. A child longing for security of home, a mother searching for her missing loved ones, and a community yearning for peace. Really, somehow, this needs to stop. I know it is easy for us to say this, but we cannot carry on like this. Cannot carry on like this. I don't know what the solutions to these are, but there are people that have the power to do this, and we really need to focus. We recall that it started with some denial that the crisis exists, or what is being fought for actually existed, and eventually it turns out that it is deep within the people. When you push people to the wall, this is what happened. They fight back, and we need to find ways of controlling that and focusing the energies really in the proper place.
Right. A lot of things have been done, both by government and other stakeholders, to restore peace and normalcy in those two regions. But the situation is persisting. The security situation remains volatile. Killings, abduction, kidnapping, destruction of properties continue in those two regions. In your opinion, where do you think there is a door out of this situation? Where is the way out of the situation?
First, there needs to be what we call in governance cessation of hostilities. That needs to happen. That now requires, when it's lasted for this long, it becomes more difficult. And the longer it lasts, it's going to become even more difficult around that. There needs to be some engagement of the population, which is counterproductive, really, in so many ways, because things like the disempowerment of local leaders of this escalate what we now have on this. But I know people have spoken about dialogue, genuine dialogue, and all of that. Unless really we start from that level, at the local level, in the villages, and start engaging people in a more positive way, and more promising future perspective. I think we are just going to be dancing around in the same place for quite a long time.
All right, let's talk about another threat to social cohesion, peace and stability of the nation. And by this, I'm referring to chieftaincy conflicts. And in the two English-speaking regions of the country, this can be qualified, or this problem can be qualified as another conflict in an existing conflict. And a case in point in this program is the CHU community in the Menchum division, northwest region of the country. And the chieftaincy issues in the community today emanate or dates back to the killing of the late fawn of that community. That was on the 9th of March 2022, when His Royal Majesty CHU CHY was killed with his first wife. Can we just step back a little bit to look at what exactly happened to the late fawn of CHU?
Yes, from what we've read, he was returning from the investiture of the chief of Way, the fawn of Way, I should say, and was attacked and killed on his way back to CHU, about 3/4 way down from Way to CHU on this. That is what we know. We've seen pictures and videos and all of that. But since then, all that has really happened, as far as the government is concerned, was a communique from the senior divisional officer saying that those that caused this were going to be found. And later on, I think we received some communique and saw some people being transported to Bamenda criminal court on this, because this is a crime, and that's what is often forgotten. This is a crime, and people, well, I hear various investigations going on. It is not a civil offense for people to be doing their own investigation. So, and this is the missing component. What has happened? What has the government done in relation to this? All these promises to the people, they are left hanging as we speak. Without a resolution of this, there is nothing really for them to hang on to. That is the issue.
Right. There was a link between what happened to the phone. Some persons highlighted a link, tried to establish a link between what happened to the phone and his fight against land expropriation by an individual, which we wouldn't want to name here. What are your findings in that perspective? Is there any link between what happened to the phone and his fight against land expropriation?
The phone was a very strong advocate of justice and was very, very close to his people. And as custodian of the Isu land, he fought very hard to ensure that any land, any Isu land that dispensed with is done in the proper way. And we have seen images of the various struggles of the Isu people to ensure that this was so. And we have read all those accusations of the fund. The truth is that we do not know. We don't know the truth around this. And it is dangerous as well to start naming persons or naming individuals in relation to this, which a criminal investigation should properly do and come up with really the correct verdict. Because this is going to go down in history. And whoever is responsible for this, it's just a matter of time that this will be revealed. But it's premature for us to misdirect our efforts to one particular direction. But what the Isu people need is an answer, and a proper answer. And the authorities, the government is responsible for providing that answer, because they operate in this region. They are in charge of this. They have the responsibility to investigate and provide the Isu people with an answer.
How was the death of the phone, or the disappearance of the phone, as it is said here in Cameroon, affected the Isu community?
Well, it's devastating. Yeah, that is why there's a stalemate in Isu right now. He was the link, first between the Isu people and between the Isu people, the authorities here. He was revered and loved by his people, and he loved his people. That had grown over the period that he's been in power. We know as well within the Northwest Province, he was really revered and respected on how he went on and did what he did. So that is the void now in Isu. This is one of the reasons why we are where we are. Because if this situation happened in any other institution in the village, he would be able to pull people together. I'll give you one example. It's Equinoxe, which is the Isu Cultural Development Association. At the moment, they don't have an elected executive. This is a situation where we would have intervened and ensured that we do have an elected executive using the powers and the command, the respect that he commanded for the people. So there is nothing happening in the Fondom right now. There is no development. happening, as far as I know, without a fund, the authority in all areas, whether it's judicial, administrative, or just simple day-to-day running of the fundum, there's nothing that can happen.
Right. There are said to be maneuvers to impose, intended to impose a traditional ruler in violation of the customs and traditions of the people of Israel. What do we know about this?
Yeah, I have seen some videos on social media of someone that I understand was going to be the successor. But since those images, I've not seen anything or heard anything else in relation to that. This is really what triggered me to write this book, The CHU Dynasty, A Life of Resilience and Accountable Succession around this. Because I knew that through the successional process, there are some public views of what goes on with that. I did not see those public views, and when I made inquiries in the village, we had not seen any of those processes that need to happen before they get to the stage where they are presenting the successor to the authorities. That's the last stage, the seventh stage. It's a seventh stage in the succession in CHU. So that is the issue here.
Right, you're going to tell us more about the CHU king-making process, as you have written down in your book, CHU Dynasty, A Legacy of Resilience with Accountable Succession at its heart. You're going to tell us more about that. But before that, the current issues in the CHU community connected to the chieftaincy, where is the origin of the maneuvers? Some are attributing it to administrative interference and some hidden hands trying to manipulate one or two things as far as the chieftaincy of CHU is concerned.
It's the nature of power, even at that level. There would be people who have an interest in that power, wherever it is, whether it's a national or village level on this. I'm not surprised if there were any manipulations around that. I wouldn't really be pointing fingers at individuals. The essence of my book is for everyone to actually understand what this process is. So if they are engaging with it, there is a proper basis for them to engage with the process. So I think starting to point out some particular individuals that are seeking to manipulate the system, I think it's more dangerous on that. The book that you have mentioned, I shared it with everyone. The quarterheads in CHU distributed free copies to them. I gave copies to the senior divisional officer, to the divisional officer, to the state council, to anyone that needs to know about this process. And it's got a very good reception. There are many things that people did not know about the succession process in CHU, the king-making process, as call it. So now they do, and there is no excuse for them now, for anyone who is engaged, not to follow this proper process. I mean, you would have read the communique that came out from the senior divisional officer sometime, I think it was in June last year, calling effectively for people to make applications if you're interested in becoming a fund. I don't think that was intended, because all the other provisions, he cited the legal provisions in relation to this, and those were fairly accurate. It's just that last paragraph where he was inviting invitations from people for consultation, whether it's a misdrafting or that was intended. I don't think it matters, but I think it's dangerous to go that way. That it has not happened is probably an indication that the authorities have found the proper process now to engage with.
So what is the problem with that invitation?
That's not how funds are found. It's the last process where the fund is presented to the administrative authority as someone that they have found to be fund. They can then do their checks to see whether they meet what the law says they must be for them to be the fund, but not before. That's the issue.
Okay, so the administrative authorities are not involved in the whole process, but just at the end. They're involved only at the end when the community presents to them that this is our traditional leader. Is that what you're saying?
That's correct, yes. I mean, if it's helpful, I can outline that whole process to you so that we can, this is the seventh step in the whole process.
Okay, so let's just go back to chapter 5 of your book, where you talk about the CHU king-making process. Tell us about that.
Yeah, there are 7 stages, so to speak, on that. I've grouped them together like that. The first is what we call conclave and family deliberations. So when we lose a fund, a secretive conclave of the royal family convenes to evaluate the potential candidates. Candidates are assessed based on lineage, character, and adherence to traditional values. Then a decision is made collectively to ensure legitimacy and community alignment of this. There are 2 compounds in CHU, the downer and the upper compound. The chief that we lost recently was from the down compound. The one previous to that chief, Joseph Mebu, the second, was from the up compound. And the chieftain, the fundum, the fund is chosen between these 2 families. And this is a very secretive process. That is why I was worried when I started seeing pictures on social media on this. The village, they are not involved in this whole process, just those families, because they have a responsibility to provide the fundum with a fund. So it's when they've found one, there is then the catching ceremony and the symbolic humiliation. The assumption is that people that know the responsibility that comes with the chief, they generally tend to run away from it. At least that's what used to happen in the past. So they have to find the chief. The one that is missing right now was found in Kumba. And I understand that the father had to call him when the kingmakers arrived to call him, and he wanted to get out and run, so they caught him and told him that this is a situation you have to be calm. Yeah, so there is that process of catching as a second level, and the humiliation. I understand that during that process you are stripped and slapped. You would see throughout the king-making process that humiliation goes through. It's a threat that goes through all the different stages, and that's quite important. The humility that comes with a chief is significant, and Chief Matso II was really an epitome of that. In any event, at the second stage, they've caught the chief, they've humiliated the chief symbolically. You then go on to the public presentation and the washing process. Here, the new fund is presented to the community with his genealogy and contributions announced. So they take the chief to this occasion is at the Kadima quarter. So the quarter head for Kadima does this particular aspect of it. So they show him to the public. They explain why he is the right man to be formed for this. Also here, there is a washing ceremony that takes place and is conducted by women, some elders within the community. And this is to prepare the chief, both spiritually and physically, for leadership. So now he's washed, he's prepared. He then moves into what we call seclusion and fattening.
What's the essence of this particular stage of seclusion? Is it a kind of training process?
Yeah, it's for him to really think quietly on the responsibility that he's taking on now. So it's a quiet period of a contemplation on his own, because you will recall from the previous 3 stages, there's a lot of involvement. You have family, both the conclave, touching him, presentation to the public. He hasn't really had the time now to sit and look at the enormity of the task ahead of him. So this is the purpose of this.
Then finally we get to the coronation and the presentation to the administration.
No, that's just the 4th stage. You move into the investiture ceremony itself, where the chief would then need to take oath. Yeah, just like the president goes to the National Assembly and takes an oath of office. Here you go to what we call Nous ceremony. This is a symbol, really, of his commitment to justice and governance. And here he's endowed as well with the symbols of authority, such as the founding spear. He would go up to a quarter called to top, where he's presented with the original spear that was used to find Isu on that. So this kind of connection between the fawn and those that came before him, so the ancestors, essentially. He's also presented with several memorabilia on that. So he visits quite a couple of shrines as well, just to empower him. One of the shrines, for instance, is what we call Fivukwa, which is a little river in the village where he goes and commit to bringing prosperity to the village and fertility as well to the village. So it's only at this stage, after this taking of the oath of office, that the government recognition comes into play. So
right.
they present
the
authorities before the celebrations follow.
What's the risk involved in violating this process?
That's the issue. That's at the heart of this. The whole idea of this is so that people accept their fund, that they are connected with their fund. And without this process, the assumption that you present someone to the people and he would be recognized as their fund is a big risk. It's a significant. But if you follow these rituals that we've outlined here, and that I've put in a lot more detail in the book, then the chances of the people accepting someone like the fund are going to increase.
Is there risk of social unrest if this procedure is not followed?
That history, well, Isu does not have a history of that. They have a history of resistance on that. So this is exactly what is happening right now. No one is responding to anything. So that's probably a quiet resistance of the people. And it's because in the past they followed all these processes that Isu is what it is today, that has managed to maintain that resilience that we see today.
Let's go to the newsstands. The Guardian Post reports that after 50 days in captivity, the division officer of Idabato cries for help in a viral video. Kidnappers demand over $500 million CHF ransom. Dio's fate hangs in the balance as wife discloses government has vowed never to negotiate with terrorists. International lawyer and anti-corruption crusader Akeremuna pleads for release of kidnapped Idabato district officer. Another issue of The Voice reports that within the framework of effort to curb chronic absenteeism, the government has sacked over 1,100 state workers from the public service. Another issue of the Guardian Post, as government steadily bankrolls francophone media, Anglophone press on live support, fears heightened English language newspapers may soon disappear from the market as economy in the northwest and southwest regions crippled by crisis. French media benefits from huge government support, while English language newspapers are made orphans by lack of sponsors. Concerning the Constitution Review saga in the Cameroon Baptist Convention, CBC, the Guardian Post reports that the court has suspended elections of the church's officials as mandates of executive president and chairman expire. In another article, the paper reports that separatist fighters have burnt down 2 vehicles in Bamenda. The Advocate, Blessed Assurance, it's a Mickey Ayuk mandate. An Echo Outlook precises that Reverend Mickey Hans is the new Presbyterian Church in Cameroon PCC moderator, while Reverend Ayuk Solomon is the new synod clerk. Municipal updates at African Industrialization and National Technology Days. Interim Mines Minister Professor Fru Callistus Gentry reiterates government's commitment to support innovators, while Honorable Malumba, the Member of Parliament for Boya Urban, advocates direct integration of trainees from the National School of Local Administration NASLA. Municipal Update takes a look at what direct integration of NASLA trainees will mean. The Horizon tells its readers that at the African Industrialization Day and National Technology Days ceremony, the Acting Minister of Mines, Industry and Technological Development, Professor Fru Callistus Gentry, said, "No turning back on industrialization." Cameroon Insider projects what it qualifies as true friendship and more between Cameroon and the Holy See. According to the paper, the relations between Cameroon and the Vatican are in an excellent state. That is the description of the ties by the Vatican secretary in charge of relations with states and international organizations after meeting President Paul Biya. You're welcome back. We are still with our guest, Dr. Paul CHU CHI. He is a barrister and arbitrator of England, Wales, France, and Cameroon. Now, Barrister, what will be your advice to your people in ESU, in the Menchum division of the Northwest region, at this point in time?
Yes, the first thing would be for my people to understand this process in itself, and for them to emulate our late fund and to pray on this, to focus on the Almighty God, to help them find a new form, because ultimately He has the power to do that. And also to engage in discussions, in dialogue with their quarterheads, as well as the traditional ruler. I think it's the head of the traditional council, or the secretary of the traditional council, who coordinates the activities of the quarterhead. And for the quarterhead, or those that I've listed that have the power, for them, the kingmakers, to follow this process right now. There is a fundamental issue that the Isu people are still mourning, and there is really no engagement with the authorities to find an answer. to find where the chief or the fund of issue has gone. That engagement needs to happen. I don't have an answer on who is going to do this, but if it is the Secretary to the Traditional Council or anyone there or the elites of issue, for them not to stay aloof from all of this. We all need to come together and resolve this in some way. It can't carry on like this. Almost, 990 days since we were without a fund. The fund or a new fund would help us to resolve some of these issues. But the authorities, they need to take responsibility, engage with the people and provide some answers on where the fund is. Even if it's updating the population or the people of issue on the steps that they have taken and how much longer they have to complete those steps, that might help.
All right, let's take interviews of the week right now, and when we come back, we'll be looking at how Cameroon can navigate future leadership transitions while upholding its constitutional and democratic order. Interviews of the week.
It is not imaginable anywhere around the world to find a town like Douala where there is zero insecurity. You must have some pockets of insecurity here and there. It is very normal. So to conclude that because of these few incidents, Douala is an insecure town, I think is an overstatement. Anyway, as far as Douala 5 subdivision is concerned, I can say that the security situation is strictly under control. The populations are going about their activities normally, and the few cases of misguided individuals who use knives to attack peaceful populations are easily managed. The few cases that surfaced in Douala 5 were immediately tackled, and the authors were taken and presented to justice. So I think that the situation in Douala 5 is strictly under control. The population know it. They have been collaborating with us through the vigilante groups that they have in their quarters. They now know that any information that they have that can help us to fight insecurity should be sent to us immediately, and that is exactly what they have been doing with the collaboration of their traditional rulers. I can reassure the population that Douala 5 is safe, very safe. You see, Douala 5 is having the particularity that most of the touristic attractions, the hotels, the snack bars, and all the rest are found here. And most of them have authorization to go to function till morning, and they have been doing it. I think we should not let fear overtake us. We should be able to go about our activities without fear of things which are existing mainly on social media. And all we can do is the populations know that security begins with us. Every individual has to first of all take their personal measures for security before counting on the state. And I think this message has always been very clear to them, and that is what they are doing. In the night, we are out. The forces of law and order are out. We have special operations that are going on in the field just to be sure that there's insecurity in the camp of those who could have possibly caused insecurity. It is regrettable that time and again a few incidents may occur, but like I said, all the measures that have been put in place have yielded fruit so far. We are going towards the end of year feast, Christmas and New Year, and during such periods, pickpockets multiply their activities in the field. People who want easy gain will normally multiply their actions, but we are occupying the field before they even show their heads. There is no society that witnesses growth without land pressure being exercised, because land in itself is a key factor, is the most important factor as far as economic processes are concerned. To set up an enterprise, you need land. To live, you need land. Even water is found on land. So land is a resource which over the years has become scarce because human activities have increased, especially in urban areas. But now, what can be done? The texts are there, the laws are there regulating lands. We need just that the people should be sincere. Major actors should be sincere. The government services involved, the administrative authorities, the authorities of the Ministry of Lands involved, and even the population, all of us, the traditional rulers, all of us have to be sincere and objective and be transparent in the management of land so that these conflicts have to be limited. But you must observe that for some time in Vuri division, for example, the number of conflicts that we used to have dropped. I think that if you go to the administrative court in Douala, you have information there. The statistics will show that the number of cases that are found there, especially in Douala 5 subdivision, have dropped because the populations have understood. We do everything on a daily basis to sensitize the population on the procedures that are involved in the acquisition and the management and even the alienation of landed property. And so the situation is gradually going to be controlled with this sensitization. You realize that we have invested a lot of energy too. This is a book that we wrote after a lot of research on the role of the administrative authorities, the chef d'etat, in the management of landed property rights. And I think that here on the spot, I'm going to give you a copy. Since you are the mouth of the population, you'll be able to read it and understand it yourself and to sensitize them. In this way, the land conflicts too will be reduced. Our doors are opened. At any time, anybody who wishes to acquire landed property anywhere, you can come and we will be able to give you information on how to proceed. Because what is killing people is ignorance.
The disadvantages of living in an environment which is infected with parasites, mosquitoes, cockroaches, rats, houseflies, mosquitoes, and in various forms. I'll just cite the malaria, I will cite cholera, I will cite typhoid fever, I will cite dengue fever, I will cite skin diseases, and even it goes further to yellow fever and even fainting fit. You can see the wild gecko can even cause death instantly if the wild gecko falls into a soup that has been prepared and the family eats. It can live from a simple scratch on the face, which is a skin disease, up to the death of an individual or paralysis of an individual, which comes to fainting fit at long term. They appear to be very, very simple. Somebody will put his toothbrush, a housefly passes on it, or a cockroach passes on it, or you have a canned drink that you put on the counter, a rat crosses on it. The urine of this rat will be deposited on the surface of the canned drink, and when the canned drink is taken and consumed by an individual, the lining of the mouth of the human being or the body, even through the scratch or even the throat, this parasite, the bacteria that is in the urine of the rat, will pass through the body and will cause what we call leptospirosis. It is a very deadly disease that develops with time after the consumption of the urine of the rat by an individual or by a human being. It is not good to that the environment should not be having bacteria, not be having mosquitoes, not be having cockroaches, because these insects play a role in the ecosystem that is equally positive. But if they are allowed to grow exaggerately in the environment or where they're not supposed to be, that's where there's a problem. Because if they exist in the environment, they will play the normal role of decomposing mass, which will go to produce fertilizer, biodegradable thing that is going to help us. But in the body, it is a problem, a serious one. And the problem here is how they are treated, or how they are the way that they are allowed to grow in the homes of where we live. And the unfortunate thing is that in Africa, in Cameroon, in major cities, even in our villages, we live with these insects, with these organisms, as if they are our family members. If the process of disinfection, the process of insect elimination, which we generally call pest control, through specialized products and companies and specialized technicians and techniques and procedures are put in place, which the community appreciates, makes use of, and actually contacts the right people for this technical and process to be put in place and well done, we will discover that we'll be living in a very clean environment and nobody will have issues. So they need specialized companies, they need specialized technicians, trained persons, equipment, processes, and products that are homologated to make this happen. And that is why we, Venta Investments Company, which is a homologated company by the Ministry of Public Health and the Ministry of Agriculture, has given us the license to do this treatment in the homes, to do this homologation, to do this fumigation, and to do this disinfection, and to kill and eliminate these pests. These pests are not eliminated in a complex, in a simple way, because you can come and put a product that is supposed to kill a rat, and before you discover it is killing a dog, it is killing a cat, and it is killing a child that is in the environment. You can pump a product that is supposed to kill mosquitoes, and it kills an asthmatic patient that is in the home. So these things are supposed to be done by technicians and supposed to be done by people who are trained using the products that are homologated. Unfortunately, that is what is not happening in our communities, and the way they are being done in the community is such that they are done haphazardly. People are living in a 10-story building, and somebody who is living in the 5th floor has problems of mosquitoes, has problem of cockroaches, and has problem of these small cockroaches that come through fridges abroad, which we call in French blats. They are very, very stubborn for treatment. And if that person decides to treat only his own apartment, and the neighbors in the 5th floor, the neighbors in the 6th floor, and downstairs, even up, do not treat their own, it is not going to last. The effect of the treatment will be short-lived. And if you treat a home that is having a restaurant close to where dirt that is dumped, you discover that the food that is being dumped by the restaurant every evening in the trash will make the rats to even grow more. They don't live in your home, but they will have a place where they live in the bush, and you will kill the ones that come to your house. You feel that you have eliminated them, but the hive where they live is supposed to be identified by the technicians, and they are dealt with there so that the whole community or the quarter will be free.
Thanks, ladies and gentlemen, for staying with us. Now, Dr. Paul CHU CHI, former advisor to the UK Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Department in Sierra Leone, South Sudan, Uganda, Kenya, and Somalia in constitutional matters, justice, morals, anti-corruption, and security. There are security problems in Cameroon, from north to south, east to west, in the crisis-stricken regions of the northwest and southwest regions. We've talked about that already. We have in the far north region with the Boko Haram insurgency, in the main cities of the country like Douala, with insecurity everywhere, in Yaoundé, everywhere around the country there are security issues. There are issues of justice. The Cameroonians today think that justice is a rare commodity. In Cameroon, with regards to the judicial system that has practically lost the trust of the people, we are also looking at the falling moral standards in Cameroon and issues of corruption, embezzlement, mismanagement of public funds rife in Cameroon. Can you advise your country on these issues?
That's really the function of government, and it is paradoxical, really, to say that we are in this situation is evidence of us not doing something about it to start with. And there are big sectors that we've listed there. It starts with a strategy and a commitment for change. You recall some time ago, you called something like rigor and moralization. When you start mentioning those things now to Cameroonians, there are many that do not recognize this, but those that recognize these words, they were filled with a lot of hope for change in these areas. But this is where we are now. Look at where we are, very far from it. So what went wrong in between? that's a whole new story in itself, which we cannot, in this program, do any justice trying to cover any of these. I think at this particular point, the only thing that I would say is for individuals, for Cameroonians to take individual responsibility themselves, though there are elections that are coming up in 2025. If Cameroonians want change, if you as an individual Cameroonian want change, you need to register and protect your vote and make sure it counts. It is the only way that we can change some of these things that are happening. And it starts from the top all the way down. Before people are able to take on that moral responsibility, they need to be seeing those examples as well right at the top, because we are still a developing nation, irrespective of what we say, and people need to live. So they have to take all kinds of shortcuts in order to do that, not justifiable, of course. So I think we need to restart in many areas. We need, the paperwork is there. We have the constitutions, we have the laws, it's the implementation of all of these things. And now people are starting to accept what is wrong. So they are not starting to recognize right and wrong again. And that's very, very dangerous. Okay, so it needs a complete overhaul, the whole system from top to bottom. And that takes time, it takes leadership, and it takes commitment from people as well. But we are far away from it.
You were advising the Commonwealth Department, the Commonwealth, the UK Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Department on these issues. So if there was one thing that the Cameroon government has to do as a matter of urgency now to ignite a change in the situation of Cameroon as far as issues of morals, corruption, embezzlement, mismanagement of public funds, justice are concerned, what will be that thing?
Well, I would give you two things. The first thing is to make the things that are there already for them to function. At the moment, they are not. So the systems are there on paper, but they are not being implemented at all. Okay. So the second thing is for the government to take on its own responsibility. They shouldn't be looking elsewhere for this. Yeah. People are crying out for independence, real decentralization of power. I don't want to talk about federalism and all of that. But at the moment, people are very disempowered. People are scared within the country to speak up on so many things. But without that dialogue, without that communication, without that freedom to be able to voice what they think, a vehicle for them to contribute to the processes that are going on there, it's going to be very, very difficult. Okay.
Right. You've written a book titled Constitutional Succession in Cameroon, and in that book, you're focusing on a comprehensive analysis of the key players and institutional frameworks involved in Cameroon's presidential succession process. And we're looking at how Cameroon can navigate future leadership transitions while upholding its constitutional and democratic order. First of all, give us an understanding of the presidential succession process in Cameroon.
Yes. The succession, it's important for us to be clear on this. A succession is when there's a vacancy. That's the first thing. Because I think when I was reading discussions, I think 2-3 months ago of various press papers in Cameroon, there was confusion. We were talking about the 45 days and all of that. That is not the situation. The fact is, within 45 days, if the president, for instance, is out of the country, he can delegate some of his powers to the prime minister. We know what happens in practice, but that's what the law says. He can delegate those powers to the prime minister for him to carry on dealing with some of the issues that the president would otherwise deal with. Was talking about a situation here where the president was not capable of continuing in office. And what is not often said, I know they jumped to the Senate, went to the Constitutional Council, and there was discussion, I think misleading, that there is no one to actually seize the Constitutional Council. What happens in practice is that the head of the Senate, okay, the Speaker of the Senate, would become the interim president and would have between 20 and 120 days to call elections and do that. But there needs to be a declaration of that vacancy, and that needs to be declared by the Constitutional Council. The question that people were getting very confused about was who will seize the Constitutional Council, and it is the National Assembly that seizes the Constitutional Council. And at the heart of this is the Bureau of the National Assembly. So they would sit, they would deliberate, and with a 2/3 majority, they would decide to seize the Constitutional Council. The Constitutional Council would then declare that vacancy before the interim president, that's the Speaker of the Senate, takes his position. If for some reason the Speaker of the Senate was not able to take on that responsibility, then it will fall on the Vice President. If the Vice President was not able to do that, then they will elect someone from the 5 deputies. So it's as simple as that. And I think this is the process that all Cameroonians, and that's why the book is simple and brief as well, to give everyone the opportunity to understand what actually happens in practice. Because there's a real danger here where people would, all kinds of misinformation going on out there for them to misunderstand this and trigger things that would lead to the stability of the country.
If it ever happens that there is vacancy in Cameroon, how can the country navigate through this process of constitutional succession while upholding its constitutional and democratic order? Because we saw, for example, in neighboring Chad, where
Yes.
the military had to come in when the person who had to constitutionally take over as interim refused doing so.
Yes, yes, that is the key. Yeah, that's a very good question in relation to this. That is why I wrote this book, because if, God forbid, that kind of situation happens in Cameroon, at least the citizens would understand what needs to happen next. So, for instance, the Vice President of the Senate declines to take on a responsibility. People should demand that if it is not occurring, someone from the other 5 take on that responsibility. In Chad, this became apparent after it already occurred, and we had what happened there. That is the danger here. Okay. So the process is there. The Constitution is very well written, very well drafted in that sense. Those that are responsible for implementing it, that's where the responsibility falls. They cannot avoid that. We cannot change that. Ultimately, it is the people that decide all of this. And what we're describing here is a process that lasts maximum of 120 days. So in this kind of a situation, it is paramount that the elections do occur after 120 days. And people are prepared to vote democratically. That's why initially, when you ask the question on what people can realistically do now, given the current environment, I mentioned elections. And even on this particular point, if the succession of Cameroon was becoming questioned in some way, it's going to be after that 120 days that the people will need to focus on and make sure that they've elected someone who is for the people.
In the present situation of Cameroon, what do you think about such a scenario? If it ever occurs, we don't know what will happen tomorrow. We can get up the next day and there is a situation of vacancy. When you look at the situation of Cameroon today, with the infighting within the CPDM and clans that have developed within the circles of power, and we are also looking at, analysts like you are also looking at the fact that the president of the Senate is very much advanced in age, just like the president of the Republic, and his vice is there, yes. But what do you think about such a scenario, if at all, if any time, at any given time, there is a situation of vacancy in Cameroon?
We cannot, or I cannot in any event, think beyond those written processes that need to be followed. Because what we don't want, and that's the essence of my book, is for the military, for instance, to intervene or to try to intervene as they did in Chad. That would create the scenarios in the countries that I experienced, in the countries that I went to, in Sierra Leone, South Sudan, and other places like Somalia. That is not what we want to be, where we want to be at this time. We need to emphasize the importance of democratic transition. As I said earlier, these are things that would happen within 120 days. And it is the responsibility of the citizens to ensure that this happens, if it is not happening. But the focus should be on what happens after that 120 days, which is where we are now. I know the people are registering to vote, and I'm hoping that this time they would really engage in that process more fully and make sure that their vote actually counts on this. Because I think, in my view, this is the only way.
That is the only way
Yes.
to have a situation of constitutional and democratic transfer of power,
Yes.
and not the military coming in. What about father to son kind of transmission of power, or succession, like the case of Chad today?
Yes, we had that, and there are a few other countries in Africa that you've mentioned, particularly in Francophone Africa, where that has happened. Some of those, like in Togo, there is some element of stability in quite a few other areas. But we also saw what happened in Gabon. So we need to be really, really careful. There are processes where, if we're talking about Mr. Frank Biya here, if that was the case, there is a process within the Constitution in which he can also try and get himself elected properly. and go through that way, but we are not a monarchy per se. We are not. And that process really, it might succeed, but there is a danger, even if it's not immediate, that it could lead to instability per se.
All right, we are going to end the program here, but let's leave you with some few words of Shadow of the Savannah. That's another book that you have written, very briefly.
Yes. Yeah, this is very, for me, very interesting narrative of really some of the things that are going on in, not just in Africa, in the world, generally, including in the UK per se. Shadow of the Savannah is a narrative that's exploring the delicate balance of power and leadership in the savannah, a fictional savannah. It's using allegory to address themes of governance, trust, and resilience. The story in that book believes with a mysterious disappearance of King Yabin. That's the character on there. This is the Lion King, personally, that symbolizes stability in that savannah, part of the savannah itself. In his absence, a cunning serpent called Batanga spreads fear and misinformation to consolidate his own power. So there is unrest, and then a group of rebels that are led by a ferocious gentleman called Anum, a wise elephant, embarks on a perilous journey to uncover the truth and to restore order. They face a lot of challenges, including Batanga's schemes, and they seek to unite the fractured kingdom by evoking the legacy of the past rulers who prioritize unity and balance. But the tale serves as really a meditation on power, on disinformation, and the enduring hope of truth and justice. So I think in summary, that's what it is on here, how there is a disappearance of a very powerful Lion King. Then people spread misinformation. Batanga takes advantage of all of this. He tries to fight, but runs out of ammunition. Anum eventually steps in.
I take home two words: truth and justice. Very key ingredients for leadership and life in general. Let me just precise that Dr. Paul CHU CHY is from ESU in the Menchum Division, Northwest region of Cameroon. And you can say some few words in the local language to your people in ESU.
Thank you. Also, today, I have shared our cherished story and the remarkable legacy that has been captured in my book, ESU Dynasty, Legacy of Resilience and Accountable Succession at the Heart. So I do so with immense pride and honor as one of you, but this is not my story, it is our story. It celebrates our resilience, rich traditions, and the unyielding spirit that has guided us through centuries. To every ESU son and daughter watching this, this is for you. Together, we honor the past, we embrace the present, and step boldly into the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time and the insights you've shared with us, Doctor.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Babla.
Right. Dr. Paul CHY, barrister, arbitrator of England, Wales, France, and Cameroon, joining us from Cambridge in the United Kingdom. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for staying with us. That's it for today's edition of The Inside. You can follow us on our social media handles on Facebook and YouTube. You can also follow the rebroadcast of the program on Friday at 5 p.m. Thank you so much. Goodbye.